This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in. A new co-host today, but you've seen him before, so don't get scared when you see him. It's not totally new and out of the blue. He's familiar to you, he should be, as host of Big 12 Watch over on our other channel, Crystal Ball College Football. Josh Neighbors joins me live from 365 Studio B in Arkansas. Is that what we're calling it, Josh?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, Little Rock, Arkansas. So Studio B is what we're going to call it. And then maybe we'll get like a Studio C in like another cool city. So, and Little Rock, I'll tell you, Josh, underrated. Underrated as a city.
I would say properly rated, but sure, you can have. No, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm actually coming up on a year here.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay, so I do. We usually talk football right off the bat on this show, and we'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl coming up because Smokey and Emery and Garrett and I will be there in Vegas next week. But let's talk about the Big 12 basketball weekend. It is basketball season, so we should start off talking about games that actually happened, other than things like a schedule release that's happening tomorrow, which we'll get to in the next segment. But, Josh, it is the conference this year is like top heavy is not the word. It's like all heavy except for Oklahoma State, and I guess you could call West Virginia kind of in the middle. But another weekend where, look, Kansas loses again. Baylor loses their third straight kind of buzzer beater type game. Texas continues to be kind of perplexing. And BYU, they hurt their own feelings, I guess, and wanted to get the horns down out of there and still won. It was a weird thing. Tech continues to play really, really well in a really tight, really awesome game against Oklahoma. I mean, so there was a lot that went on this weekend in the Big 12. And just your thoughts on what this league has been basketball-wise through the first, month of conference season.
Yeah, I mean, this was a Saturday where, you went from the end of so I was all eyes on Kansas and Iowa State because that was the big game on CBS. And then I immediately went to the end of the Tech Oklahoma game, which was another top 25 matchup. And then, I covered the Arkansas game, which is 5 o'clock. It's Kentucky. And set up for that and everything, was able to watch the entire Baylor TCU game, which was just like, I mean, that was the unbelievable basketball game. And it's funny because that game, I saw the line was pretty short when it came out. I think it was like 4, Baylor by 4. Like, Baylor's at home, and usually you favor the home teams, but this TCU team actually did beat Baylor at home last year, if I remember correctly. So, and this entire TCU team is full of 28-year-olds. So, all these guys did it again. I mean, Kansas, West Virginia is not very good, but they have wins at home over Texas and Kansas, right? And they shot 57% from 3 against Kansas. So talk about like the depth of the league. Every single team is capable of basically beating everybody. I mean, Oklahoma State probably not most of the time, but for the most part, everybody seems relatively capable of beating somebody big. And even Cincinnati stuck with KU and Allen Fieldhouse, and although Houston appears to be distancing themselves just a touch, but for the most part, man, it's chaos every single weekend.
Well, and look, Houston has to go to Allen Fieldhouse this week for the first time as conference members. I'm not sure when the last time Houston and Kansas played at Allen Fieldhouse, if they ever have before. I have not looked that up. I'm sure we'll get the notes before Saturday and know. But I'm actually going to that game too. So like I've got a whirlwind couple of weeks coming up here, Josh. But I married into a Kansas family, so we are taking my first trip up to the Fog and their first trip in a very long time. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be
Paul. I've committed to sin, Paul. As I'm a Missouri graduate and I'm dating a KU, KU grad. So okay. I'm dating a Jayhawk. So I'm in the same boat now.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what my life is.
Yes.
You're familiar with it. And like, you guys are still rivals, even though you don't play as much anymore.
Correct.
You know, like it pops up here now and again. I hope that they just eventually just say, look, we're going to play each other in everything, you know, every year. You know, like football would be a great, you know, that takes care of one of your non-con games all, you know, every year. Everybody's going to like it. It'll be fine. Like nobody's going to be mad. Like, oh, we're playing, like, no side is going to be like, oh, that means we can't play Michigan this year. Shut up. You weren't going to play Michigan anyway. Like, you know, like it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So I hope that they do that. They've done it in basketball. They haven't done it in football. I wish they would, especially since both teams are good right now. It would be maybe better than it's ever been in that rivalry. So, but yeah, so I'm not my first trip to the Fog, and it's with some crazies, and so I'm excited about it, but I'm a little intimidated, and I kind of.
It's a great venue.
Yeah,
it's a great venue.
Yeah. So what is it like? Do you have to like, you know, soften the blow when Kansas loses?
So we watched our first KU game together this past Saturday.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean there was some frustration there, but ultimately, I think all the Kansas fans are kind of so used to life in the Big 12 now. We're like, the Big 12 champion's gonna have like eight or nine losses.
Yeah,
like it's gonna end up being like that many because the league is so hard. I mean, and so for Kansas, I think it's just kind of worked out where their schedule has been kind of difficult in the beginning, and they're trading wins.
It's difficult after tomorrow. They play Oklahoma State tomorrow, and then it's just they don't. I don't know. It's like when they made this basketball schedule, like, you know what? Who's gotten it too good for too long? Kansas. Let's.
Yeah. Well, remember last year, like KU got run at home by TCU. Like TCU ran them out of Allen Fieldhouse last year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like this, it's just this league. And I think Bill Self knows this and all the coaches know this. And honestly, I think TCU is a great example. That's like they have last couple of years, I think, peaked way too early. It's really about how you're playing later in the year. Mm-hmm. Because there are probably, I would say KU's got Final Four potential, obviously. Houston definitely does. If Iowa State gets it ironed out on the road, you know, that's the one thing. Like, they're just so damn good at Hilton. In a way, it's a little bit different story, but they have won games on the road before. They beat TCU last week on the road. Like it's about making sure you find that gear once late February rolls around. And making sure you turn your stumbles, you know, you're gonna, like, I think most teams, it feels like most Big 12 teams will lose 3 and 4, right? Like you'll lose 3 or 4 at one point in time, or 3 in a row in some cases. But can you make sure you get it ironed out, you know, at the very end of it is the big thing. So I think most fans are kind of, you have to think that way. Like you love to rip off 10 in a row.
Yeah.
But you love to be doing what Carolina is currently doing right now in the ACC. But that's not the reality of the Big 12. There's actually just too many good teams, too many good coaches, and too many good venues.
No, and look, Carolina, the last 3 years is on a roller coaster ride of ridiculous. Of like, we are terrible. No, we're fantastic. No, we're bad again. No, we're fantastic again. I don't know. Like, honestly, they're kind of like the cocaine of basketball teams right now.
And they're fun to watch. They're always fun to watch too. They're always entertaining to watch for sure.
Man, up and down. So. I'm curious an outsider's perspective on Baylor. They've lost these 3 games in a row, one in double overtime, then at the buzzer against Texas, and then in triple overtime against TCU. This is clearly a good team, not a great team yet, because the great teams would have won at least 2 of those. Good teams, you know, they're in that they haven't found, I think, exactly who they want to be yet or who they can be. They're getting better at certain aspects, but they don't finish at all. And they've got to find that before too long here, or they're going to find themselves, you know, Jack and I were talking about it before the show, of hoping that the other team is gassed late and that they can finish that way, because they're not like putting people away. They don't know how to go on a run after about 7 minutes left in the game. They can trade baskets with the best of them. But as far as, you know, anything else, that's just not who they are.
Yeah, they're interesting. I mean, I'm looking at their Big 12 games so far, won by 5 in overtime. 1 by 9. I think that BYU game, were they trailing at one point? Or that was a relatively close game, I think. They ended up winning by 9, whatever it was. Cincinnati, they won by 3. They lost. They had the overtime loss against K-State. They lost by 2 against Texas. They lost by 3 in triple overtime. So like all of their games have been within 10 in the Big 12. And I don't know. Ever since the national championship, like Scott Drew has a style, and he gets so much. He gets a lot of good talent. It's just really hard to recreate what they had that year, and they've done they're pretty close to it. But I just think, I don't know, like having Davion Mitchell is just like you just don't get players like that all the time, right? Like just a two-way game wrecker.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get guys like that. And they've got guys who can spread out and score. I just don't know if they've gotten to they feel like they've been close, but they've not been able to recreate that all the way. They're getting close, and I wouldn't be shocked if this team can turn it on. But they have, Butler and I thought Mitchell were both like excellent defensive guards. They have 2 guys who are that great defensive guards this year. I don't know if they do.
No, and look, I think there are some positives. Jaden Nunn is playing a lot better than he was early in the year. He's hitting his stride. Jacoby Walter, because he's such a scorer, is going to be like hot and cold a little bit. And
he's a freshman too.
He's a freshman, so you have that. Yeah. Say like Yves Misi, same way, is like, look, he's the by far the most athletic big player they've ever had under Scott Drew. Like it's not even close, and they've had some good ones, But
right.
But he's also still a freshman, so there's those times where he'll get like 6 putbacks in a game in the first half, and in the second half, and maybe it's because he's tired, maybe because he's not used to running like this for as long, because he's a freshman and a young one at that. He came to college early. Those putbacks that he's having the first half, it's like, oh my gosh, look at Misi. Now it's like, oh well, now that's a foul. Like that's kind of how it goes.
Right.
So that's where they are. And like, I also think that they're a team that has a lot of good parts, but they don't all work together exactly well yet. They haven't figured all that out. So it's weird. Then that's why you have games where, you're not finishing, you're not doing this. Some days you play better defense, some days you don't. Teams figure out how to, exploit a matchup, issue with you. They were like, all 3 of these games that they've lost, they could have at any point put away and kind of run away with because they were playing better than Kansas State until very late in that game. They had Texas on the ropes for a while in a game where Texas couldn't miss in the first half and didn't put them away. And then with TCU, this one went back and forth a little bit more, but there were times like in each overtime where, okay, you've had 2 good possessions in a row. If you make it 3, you can probably put them out, but you couldn't do it. And so I guess that's maybe just a lack of killer instinct that they have so far. They might be 2 teddy bears, but you mentioned Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler. Mitchell, Butler, Teague, Vital. Those 4 guys together all collectively had it, where it was like, oh, they could kind of like eat your fear a little bit. Like when you started to get nervous about like, oh, this is going well, they fed off that well. I don't know if this team even has a sense for that. Like they don't, they just don't get it.
Well, and then one thing too, I realize this a lot in college basketball, like when you rely, and Baylor does this to great effect, but when you rely on individual shot makers, sometimes the end of game situations will go your way. Sometimes they don't, right? So like if putting a team away is about one guy breaking down somebody else off the dribble, like it might go your way sometimes if that guy does a great job. It might not though if that guy misses, it's all right, this guy missed a shot. All right, let's get to the other guy now. He's got to break somebody down, make a shot. And that's kind of how Baylor has rolled, right? Like they maintain such good spacing on offense. They really do. They really want to. And Scott Drew very much empowers his players on the offensive end of the floor. I think the one thing, you mentioned Jacoby Walter, like I don't love it when your best scorer is a freshman. I mean. There are like he's probably their most talented guard, right? I mean, I think that's the way some folks probably put it. Like he's probably the most talented guard, but it's hard. Yeah, like he's shooting 40% this year, 41%. That's not terrible. Shooting 36 and 3, not terrible. 85 and 1, like that's pretty good. But like that's hard for a kid who's that young now to go through the Big 12 schedule and the gauntlet and be relied on in a way that the way the team is structured, other guys were. Now they have other options. They have other options, but they're really only playing like 6 or 7 guys.
Yeah.
right? I mean, they played 6 guys 40 plus minutes in that game the other day, I think, or, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? They played, I mean, I know that Langston Love off the bench ends up playing like 40 plus minutes, but yeah, I think it's the nature of how it goes. So I think a good run of form will come for them, but ultimately, it's just if you're going to play this style. Yeah, let's see, 5 guys who were over 40 minutes, and then Jaden Ohm he was 32. So yeah, I mean, they're relying on a short number of guys and just not run out of gas, but TC was kind of up to the challenge today.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, I do want to talk about what Grant McCaslin's doing at Texas Tech. Like they are playing. Like Scott Drew's tentacles now are all over the conference in the country. We talk also about Wichita State as well, and North Florida, but that's been a very long time for Matt Driscoll. But yeah, he's got coach. They're hiring coaches off the Scott Drew tree now. Jerome Tang and Kansas State's a good team, but they don't have a scorer. Like they don't have somebody who can take over like they have in the past. And I think that's what's right. I mean, they were at Houston this week, so they're not an easy place to play. But Tech, they are so ridiculously good and efficient, and I mean, they play well at home. They got a huge win on the road in a great game. Grant McCaslin's doing a job there in Lubbock. Yeah,
it's not surprising. Grant McCaslin was one of those guys where it's like, just wait, he'll get the job and it's gonna go well. And I mean, they don't feel great when you think about them on like terms of a roster, and then you watch them, they're like, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They are, I think, competent is a great word for them. Mm-hmm. And they've got some really old, like Joe Toussaint. Think about Joe, the step up that Joe Toussaint has taken. Plays 3 years at Iowa, goes to West Virginia, not really what he thought it would be. And this year, he's shooting 43% on the floor, but like he's shooting and not a great numbers from 3 either, but 85 from the line. He kind of closed things out for them the other day, right? Having a guy who's like that. Pop Isaacs has not shot the ball particularly well this year, but still feels like this ridiculously dangerous player that they've got. And it feels like he's poised for like a February where he ends up, shooting like, 49% and 40 from 3. I mean, he just feels like he's a playmaker, and they trust him even though the shooting has not been there. So I feel like they've got, they're covered on the guard part of things, got some decent size, but like they just play well together. They end up playing well together, and they've had some games they have overwhelmed some teams. So I'm impressed with them, especially on the defensive side of things. McCaslin has got them in a good spot, and I mean the numbers aren't super staggering, but they just seem to play well together and they've won a bunch of games this year.
Absolutely, and look, Oklahoma's not like nobody's. Here's the thing about it: nobody's going away. Like
right,
one coach is probably going to get let go, and he won. Look, Mike Boynton won the other day, finally, but he's probably going to get fired, which I think is unfortunate because I think that everything that's happened at Oklahoma State has nothing to do with him. The NCAA arbitrarily popped their bubble, and then they haven't been able to put the toothpaste back in the tube. This is a dude who did recruit Kate Cunningham, for God's sake. So somebody's gonna get Mike Boynton on the cheap, on the rebound, and they were like, "This is the best coach we've ever had." He's unbelievable. And right. Oklahoma State's gonna be like, "Yeah, we thought so too," but it's just at the point. They're just going to have to make a change. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to get easier for anybody. Nobody's going away. 13 out of the 14 teams could find themselves legitimately in the tournament conversation, middle of February. And by the end of it, you're probably getting 9 teams in. I would think you're probably going to get 9 teams in.
Yeah, I think 9 or 10. 10's what I think 10 is what Lenardi has right now, I believe.
So
10, 9 or 10.
Yeah, so you get 9 or 10 teams in. It's a fantastic league. Josh, unfortunately, it would have been great to have you here tomorrow during this time because we'd be able to talk about the Big 12 schedule. We know who's going to play whom. We don't know when yet, but that's coming out tomorrow. We'll talk about that and the prospects for the league next year as the transfer portal first wave of the dust has more or less settled. I mean, you're still seeing little things pop in here and there, but for the most part, the dust has settled on the first wave of the transfer portal. We'll talk about that next. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside good buddy Josh Neighbors. Love having Josh on the show. Josh, I'll tell you, Emery's here. He's going to Vegas with us this next week. We are going to do we'll call this a scouting trip for Big 12 Media Days this summer.
Is next year in Vegas?
Yeah, it's in Vegas this year. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So.
Oh no.
Yeah, we got. I love, here's the thing. Everybody, Brett Yormark gets a little bit of and I think he's done a great job. Don't get me wrong in saying this. I do think he gets a little bit too much of a Valentine from people who are, he's the best boyfriend Big 12 fans have ever had. And they had all these other, people who just didn't fulfill any needs. And so, when he does something this is just so different and new and wonderful. And you're like, well, yeah. I mean, it's just, he's just doing the job right. He's not.
I am Brett Yormark as a boyfriend. I think it's pretty fair to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
no. I'm just holding the door. That's all I'm doing.
He's opening the door. He doesn't hang up on me when, just in the middle of conversations, and, he doesn't eat my food while I'm in the bathroom. Those things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just doing it. But he has had a lot of innovation. And I do love that, the Jerry booked AT&T Stadium. It's double booked. There's a lot going on at AT&T Stadium. So Big 12 Media Days, which is an event that he can't really, he makes money off it, but, again, not that much, compared to whatever's going to be there. I'm sure it's a concert or a rodeo or, World Cup, something else, we're there at the same place where the World Cup final is going to be. So it's not like he's moving it out for a meat packing convention or something like that.
Right.
Which he probably would also make more money than the Big 12 Media Days. But Yormark's golly, what do we do? Vegas. Let's just pivot to Vegas. So that's an innovation I can enjoy. Having done media days in the same city for 15 years now, it's nice to have a change up every now and again.
Yeah, I'm just worried because I have this image in my head of Brian or Smokey being where's Josh? We need to do 10 minutes with Josh. And they're Josh is in Caesars betting on, Mets Phillies right now. It's the middle of July. And I'm hang on, guys. I got to see if Zach Wheeler gets six strikeouts in the first 3 innings. So yeah, that is a little dangerous. Yeah. But it's exciting. It'll be exciting.
Yeah. Look, you can I'm sure there's a bus tour you can take around all the sports books, people go on brewery tours. What? Oh, yeah.
Have you been to Vegas?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't been in quite a while. It's been a while, but I did. I went there with my family one time, which is kind of an interesting. I was 21, so I just able to enjoy Vegas. But my dad used to go all the time, and so it was just mostly I just hung out with him because my mom and sister were like, no, we want to go do these girly things, and Dad's like, I'm going to teach you how to be a man. We're going to play craps. All right.
Exactly.
It's what men do. We get craps, and we, some cocktail waitress name's Bar brings me a drink, and somebody's chain
smoking cigarettes right next to you. Exactly what Vegas is.
Yeah, especially in 2001, it's a lot. It's even more different now. And then one of my buddies, we had his bachelor party there, and stayed at the Paris, which was really a fun week. Which I'm I've signed several NDAs about it, so talking about that. So it's been a while. It's like I was probably 30 the last time I was there. So it's been quite a while. But yeah, I love Vegas. I can't wait to go back. And to get to go twice this year is going to be really awesome. But Josh, that being said, we are at the end of the transfer portal first wave. And the Big 12 table's been has been reset, through there's, one big coaching change with Jed Fish being gone and Brent Brennan coming in. Able to retain the two best players on the team, though, so that's pretty huge. Did lose some. And then you've watched, what Colorado has done in the portal. I'm sure they will be better. And their schedule, it's going to be easier than it was last year, I would just assume, just because the Pac-12 was so deep in its final year. But your thoughts about where the Big 12 sits in a league that we're not going to be able to figure out until probably about week 7 or 8 next year, I would think.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, my first thought about Colorado, because they have the best transfer portal class by virtue of the fact that they have more transfers than everybody else. I don't know if Deion Sanders is going to be there much longer. This is not how you build a program, right? You can fix things, and you could argue, well, hey, he might be fixing things a second time around, but also a big part of this is player development, and that is where Big 12 schools thrive. That is, they know they do this. Like, you can get some mercenaries and play well in the Big 12, but most of the time, your best programs are the best coach. I would say Mike Gundy, right? Now, they're in a talent-rich part of the country, but like you're still recruiting against Texas and OU and Texas A&M, and schools like that. And they're still able to get good recruiting classes, but what makes them great is their player development and their talent development. And that's the same thing for Kansas State. That's what's made KU really good in the last couple seasons. So I'm wondering where that's going to come in. And does Colorado look like, I think a good comp for Colorado this year was KU last year, right? Mm-hmm. Just, they were not built for the long haul. And can they change that next year? Because KU sputtered down the stretch, and they sputtered in the end of games. And it was a cardio thing. It was like a conditioning thing. It was a talent thing. Can Colorado start building more, or is it like, all right, let's just see which interchangeable parts we can shift in and kind of see if we're better? So Deion Sanders was red hot, start off last year. I didn't think it would end well, but I have some concerns, especially when they made the switch from Sean Lewis to Pat Shurmur. I did not think that was smart. Did not think that gave them an edge. And I've got some serious questions about Deion. You can learn on the job. That's fine. At a place like Colorado, it's fine too, because they have not been very good. But I'm wondering about how long he's going to be there if we're going to keep switching out that many players each season.
Yeah. So, Pat Shurmur looks like, it's going to be, he's going to be there haven't really been like that much of a formal announcement on him, but he's going to be the guy. And, we'll see how that goes. Like, the offense is going to change, going to be different. They didn't have the horses to run that offense last year successfully. So they have certain, I can probably, without even looking at the film of the guys that they brought in the offensive line, tell you that they'll be better, because you've got to trust that the guys that they brought in will be better than 5 turnstiles. It just, right. It's like Disney. Like, you ever been to Disney World in the morning?
Yes.
And the kids just kind of run in. That's what Shedeur Sanders was like. He was standing in the park just looking at all these people running in all last year. That's what his offensive line was Disney World at 9 a.m. Just, people running in and, trying to get in line and all that stuff. So he's a very good player. Travis Hunter is a very good player. They've got elite players at certain positions. That running back, Dylan Edwards, really, really good play. They've got some good players, but they have to be able to run the ball. They have to be able to, I don't care what league you're in, and we saw it when the league was like this week in and week out, and it's not that way anymore, despite what people outside of it want to say. But if you want to try to play, Cliff Kingsbury versus Art Briles every week football, that's not that you can't sustain that. Art even had to bring in defensive coordinators. Cliff never got it. He never got it. He never got there. We're about to talk about Patrick Mahomes in the next segment, and every time Patrick Mahomes goes to another Super Bowl, he makes Cliff Kingsbury look like a worse head coach. You couldn't get enough guys to win you 3 or 4 more games just to make this guy, the world, know how good this dude you have is. where he falls to 10th because you think he's a system quarterback, like all those things. All right. Like those things.
I would also say the best team in the league, the best teams last few years, but the best team in the league this year, their best quality was their ability to stop the run.
Yeah,
like Texas, because Texas stopped the run and they won the league. That point blank period.
Yeah.
So
Colorado couldn't run it, couldn't stop it. Couldn't run it, couldn't stop it.
Exactly.
And you like when you can't do those two things, you're not going to win. So I think that you're like they're in a spot where they have to do that. I have faith that Deion Sanders. Here's the thing about guys with a lot of pride and a lot of ego. I think he's found a way to channel it the correct direction at this point in his life. But so when they have that, like I don't think there's doors that he's not going to open to make sure the team is better because he knows that he's put a lot out there about, what he's doing, what he's trying to change, why he is the guy who he believes he is as a coach. So I don't think he's going to be like, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. I do think that there were coaches like Dabo Swinney, like he's got doors he just won't open right now. And that might be his undoing because he won't open those doors. Deion's going to open every door available to him. It's just, do you make the right decision when that door is open?
Yeah, I think he'll get some chances. And he is going to try everything. I just like player development. We got to see it. Right? Like I got to see guys getting better and improving. And the roster, we'll see. It's gonna be a process for them, but. You have some questions about how good they're going to be, and I think obviously, all four of those teams coming in the league, how good they're going to be. Yeah. And yeah, I mean the Arizona thing's really, really interesting too. I mean, it's funny when I think about the Big 12 after this entire stretch. The two best quarterbacks, you can argue the three best quarterbacks, and you can argue the fourth guy, Jaden Rashada, who's might be the most talented quarterbacks. Like. Those schools are all set at QB. Yeah. And the two best quarterbacks in the league, I don't think any doubt are Cam Rising and Noah Fifita. Yeah. I don't, and no disrespect at all to Shedeur Sanders. I think Noah Fifita is a complete and total star. Yeah. And Cam Rising's, my age. So I think, I think that's what I think of about next year too. I'm excited because, that's going to be adjustment, sure, but the quarterbacks from those four teams, they're all pretty much set at QB.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So, because you think about the quarterbacks coming back, or the ones in the teams that are already here, a lot of transfers like KJ Jefferson, Daquan Finn, those are two guys who I think will fit the systems they run well, but we got to see it before it happens. Right. Avery Johnson's at Kansas State. That's going to be huge. Jalen Daniels at Kansas State. So this is now.
I would put Jalen up there, but the problem is he doesn't play enough.
Yeah.
Right. It's how can I count that in Avery Johnson potential, but it's untapped potential at this point in time. So all this stuff has to. That's why I would go with those guys because I know those guys have played and I've seen their level of talent last season, and I feel like it's a bit more dependable. Everybody gets hurt, but it's a bit more dependable, at least I feel than some of the other guys.
Well, and look, Jalen Daniels and Cam Rising, it's the same story for both of them. How much are you going to play? How many of those 12 games are you going to play?
Right. I think Cam Rising should be fine though. Yeah. Because he has the one, I guess he's been hurt before, but he has the one injury here. Jalen Daniels at the back, that's just, you worry about that because a nagging back injury that's now gotten him back-to-back seasons. Just really concerning. It's really, really concerning, which is sad because I think he was voted preseason player of the year last year at the conference. Yeah. So, and I really hope we get him back at full strength.
He was the dude, look, and I would have said it over any quarterback in the league, and I'll say it now. If he's healthy and you need to win in the fourth quarter, he's the one I want. Put him on any roster. He's the one I want. If you want to win the game, a tight game in the fourth quarter, the health being not a factor, where we're not talking about back injury or whatever. When he's healthy, he has got the gamer gene where it's all right.
And he gives you those tools. He gives you those things, you can do more things with him because of his abilities.
Yeah. It's 3rd and 17. We had a couple penalties here. They're great in coverage. Well, I'm just going to run for 19 yards. Those kind of things.
Right, exactly.
He can do those things that are just kind of you can't plan for, you can't plan for that well. But yeah, I think, as we look forward to the schedule release, I think that's also going to, the way that team schedules fall based on that is going to probably determine a lot of how this league goes and how teams, are going to be. Where, when are you going to get your good stretch of home games? When do you have, hopefully no one gets a schedule like Florida has. We know what they're going to be, but like you've seen Florida's schedule.
Yes.
And honestly, it's like they were banging Mike Slad's wife. I don't know, like what.
Yeah, man. They're like, it's like, oh, here you go, Billy Napier. Enjoy your must-win year 3.
Yeah.
He's basically cooked, and he might not even be able to, do anything about it.
Yeah, if I'm him, like the thing I'm telling Scott Strickland and anybody is like, look, I think we can be a better team this year. Our record may not reflect it that much because we're still a team in transition, and this is the schedule we got. And we already had, they have 3 Florida schools on their non-conference schedule, and none of them are slouches. Right. Miami, FSU, and UCF all on the schedule this year for Florida.
Believe that.
So
can't believe that.
Yeah, I can't believe, because the Gators, I'll tell you this, would never have deigned in the past to play UCF, in almost anything, other than like a midweek baseball. Once Howard Schnellenberger built Miami, they kind of got to like once a decade we'll do a home and home, and then you guys can shut up about it, because they did not. Like, the contract came up. They're like, nope, not doing it. We're not going to let you roll in here and destroy us. Like, this is not how it's going to be. So to have, like, Florida State's never going away. There's too much politics to that. It might be a conference game next year. Who the hell knows? But who knows? But they, like, that, to have that schedule, those 3 all at once, not to mention just every good team that's going to be in the SEC too. Like, it's like, I just hope that does not happen to anybody in the Big 12, because that would be. I don't think it will.
I think the big thing about this is, like, we can break down the schedules all we want to. Mm-hmm. I would more look at like how many good coaches are you getting in a row, not how many good teams, because the teams we always look at the schedules and you can say, oh, this is gonna be a rough stretch, but like we really don't know until we see these, especially the Big 12 schools, until we see them. But if you have a stretch where it's like you get Kleiman, Leipold, and Campbell like back to back to back, or like Gundy, Leipold, and Campbell back to back to back, it's like, that's not what you want to see on the schedule. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I don't know if you're gonna be able to look at the schedule next year and be like murderers row. You know what I mean? Just because like there's the Big 12 this year and last year, just a bunch of really good teams for the most part, like really strong, solid teams.
Here's the 2 I don't want in a row at any time, just based on their styles of play. I don't want Utah and Iowa State playing those defenses 2 weeks in a row. Like if you did, if you went, Utah, Iowa State, Kansas State, like physicality on defense, back to back to back.
There better be a buy in there somewhere.
Yeah. This year, I think everybody has 2. So like that's good since I start in August. So, and I guess the playoff and all that stuff too. But that'd be a tough shot. Look, if Dave Aranda starts calling Baylor's defense like they did 2 years ago, you don't want them either. But again,
that's what I'm saying though. It's like we don't like Baylor is, I guess, perceived as an easier team because they don't know what they are. But if they start improving, which is not out of the realm of possibility, like, your schedule all of a sudden changes if you have to play a Baylor Bears team that's like really good. I mean, that's part of the Big 12. Like, what's TCU gonna look like? Yeah. Right. I mean, TCU was a national championship game. My God, like a year ago, and now it's now they had a down year, and that's the one thing. There's a lot of. I mean, this has always been a league where teams have kind of gone up and gone down, right? We had the stretch. We had 7 different teams in the last 4 Big 12 championship games. Yeah. Right. The only repeat offender, if you will, was Oklahoma State. Yeah. So like that's kind of the nature of this league, and we just don't know sometimes who that team is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, speaking of TCU, former TCU defensive coordinator Joe Gillespie, who's now the head coach at Midway High School, he's going to be on the show today. He's going to be on the show today. Yeah,
exciting.
He's going to be on the show today. Not in studio as originally planned. He'll be on the phone. So. Got good news for Jack there, and that he doesn't have to set anything up. I might as well have given him like a big bag of candy just right then.
Very interesting for Joe Gillespie to.
I don't have a bag of candy. He thought he might be also getting a big bag of candy, but that's not.
Wow, sad.
That's not what's going to happen. All right, when we come back, we're going to dedicate the last segment to look. You're the Big 12 watch guy. The Super Bowl has Big 12 quarterback and Big 12 quarterback in it. This is the triple option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, alongside me here from 365 Sports Studio B in Little Rock, Arkansas. And Josh,
the satellite campus.
Yeah, the satellite campus. Yes, we have degree programs available all over.
I'm your professor. Yes.
Yeah. So anyhow, I think when it comes to the Super Bowl, the majority of America wanted to see Baltimore and the Lions, and the majority of America probably wanted to see the Lions in that it was just such a heartwarming story. And everybody's kind of tired of people get tired of dynasties. I do think, though, the 49ers they have a huge national fan base, so maybe that's not the same.
Yes.
The Chiefs now have, probably quintupled their fan base in size because of Taylor Swift. Anything that she likes, you have to like too. She's kind of like the new Oprah in that regard for a lot of people, where Oprah used to be the one where Oprah said you need to read this book. There'd be all these people who'd be like, oh, well, what if she comes over? I better have read it if she pops by. Hey, did you read a million little pieces? No, I haven't yet. Well, I got to go on to the next house.
That's a good comp. Yeah. That's a good comparison to Oprah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now Taylor Swift is, become a football fan, and so are they. So, so I think there's that, but we'll start from the Big 12 perspective, and two very differently perceived quarterbacks when they were in school. And that Brock Purdy was a 4-year starter at Iowa State. He was always very dependable. I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would have seen this for Brock Purdy. Now, if you told me he'd be a 10-year NFL backup, I'd be I can buy that. He's got gumption. He's got this. There's a spark about him. He's a leader. He's played a lot of football. Those kind of guys stick around the league longer than most think. The Bruce Gradkowskis of the world, where, they're good starters in college, but you would never think Bruce Gradkowski is going to win me 3 Super Bowls. But he's on your roster. He's a help. He's got a football mind. He loves the little things about it. So that's where I would have put Brock Purdy, and that's where all the NFL put Brock Purdy, because he's Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. Now, Patrick Mahomes, the only question about him is he, and people who asked that clearly never watched him actually stand and throw a ball. Is he a system quarterback, or is he really something special? And we found that he's on the track to the only person who may be able to unseat Brady as the GOAT might be Patrick Mahomes. So different tracks, but still the same spot. Yeah,
certainly more talented than Brady was.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tom Brady built it up over time, right? Tom Brady was, first.
Well, those teams were defense first. And then back in those days, they threw the ball, and they did not throw the ball as much as teams do now too.
Yeah, Tom Brady kind of built himself into what he it was. He built to that point. Whereas Patrick Mahomes,
he built himself into this unbelievable player.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes just he has all this God-given ability, and then, has got the way he works at it, the way, he looks at the science of it and the different things that he does. He's really, it's amazing. And you just can't bet against him. I thought, because of the supporting cast that he had around him, that this would be the year that Patrick Mahomes was going to be kind of stuck. and that they would go back to the drawing board next year, get him what he needed, hit refresh a little bit, and then move on. But when you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the defense that they had that was really good and nobody talked about, you only need to score 17 points to win a game. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I think for as much as they swung and missed on offense and free agency and and also in the draft, they hit on defense. Like Nick Bolton, great pick. George Karlaftis, great pick. Jerry Sneed, great addition. Trent McDuffie, great addition. I mean, they absolutely crushed every single one of those. I mean, those are all really important players for them. And it's funny because Martez Valdez-Scantling has not been very good, and he's had 2 big catches now in the last couple weeks. And it's funny because like Kadarius Toney, for as much crap as he's gotten, like him playing is important to them because Kadarius Toney is still in the league because he's always open. He can't catch the ball, but he's one of those guys who's like always open. And there's a reason why he's still around because he's got that speed and he's got that ability. And I actually think like Rashee Rice was a good pick. I think he's good receiver now. He's going to be a very good receiver, but that's not a number one. They missed on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That was a miss. That was a complete miss. Now Pacheco makes up for that too, but this is like a cast of characters. So this is not Kelce in his early 30s, Tyreek Hill out there too, Sammy Watkins, still like at the end of things. But this is not a offense that's got everything. They are much more often throwing passes closer to the line of scrimmage, right? This does not feel like the team that can nuke you on 3rd and 17 like those past Chiefs teams could. And I think Patrick's done a great job adjusting to that. And he has not been excellent this year, but like he was so good to start off the game yesterday. That touchdown pass to Kelce was like, that is as good as it gets. It was not a rocket. It was not, I'm a CJ Stroud guy. It was not a CJ Stroud frozen rope. It was a perfectly placed lofted ball. And then I think about the throws too. There was one where they had Kelce in the flat. I think it was a 3rd down, and he popped it up basically like an alley-oop, like over the top, floater over the top. Some guys kind of freak, like Jared Goff would like a lot, would kind of freak out maybe and try to slide it around, whatever. Mahomes kind of steps back, falls back, and almost like a fadeaway jump shot, throws it over the top. And I like to see the fact that he's adjusting his style of play to the personnel, and they're still winning anyway. I'm not sure about you, Paul, but I watched that game on Christmas Day, and you're like, what in the heck is wrong with this team? But also at the same time, think about Eagles the first half of the season, you're like, this is a juggernaut. They hit a rough stretch, and they get dog walked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs. And you're like, what happened here? The NFL is weird like that. Like teams will just find their groove. And I felt this way when they beat Miami. I know it was a cold game. I know Miami was missing a lot of people, but it's like they went and they pushed Miami around. We hadn't seen that kind of gear.
Yeah.
Also, Mahomes has kind of owned the Bills in the playoffs. It's like, all right, these 2 guys, like until the Bills actually win it, I'm not going to pick them to win it. I'm going to pick this coach and this team, and they did it again. And in Baltimore, I know Harbaugh has gotten there and gotten the job done, but until Lamar Jackson does it, I'm not going to take them. And here we are again on their side of things.
Lamar Jackson was one guy away twice from breaking that game open early. He had the run on the 4th down. Honestly, I can't remember who got it. It might have been Drew Tranquill who got him. But if Drew Tranquill's not there, he probably scores an 80-yard touchdown or whatever it was. And then on the pass he threw to himself, like there was only one guy in the way. Like, and mostly because when something like that happens, it's like a loose ball in basketball that takes a weird bounce to like the guy who's all the way across the court, and he's just like, well, I'm going to go dunk it now. Like that's how that was, because everybody froze because they thought nobody's going to catch this ball in the air. And then here he is, and he goes and gets 13 yards, which could have been 50 if he got past one more guy. Although I'm sure he was probably even surprised that like the backyard shenanigans that he just pulled had worked off.
The ball was in the air forever. I think that's why he's like, I think he even said there was probably like, I can probably go and get that. It's still up there. I can probably go get that ball.
I'm going to go try to do it. Yeah, I think Lamar, I mean, he's going to have a lot more chances. Like he's shown what kind of player he is. But again, like That was, and I don't even blame him as much as that was on the coaching staff. They had a really odd game plan, and they did a lot of dumb stuff. They committed a lot of dumb penalties, and they just didn't play
Todd
efficient.
Monken game was weird. I like Todd Monken. I think he's a really good coordinator. Did not necessarily call a very good game, and Spagnuolo kind of kicked his ass. I mean, it was not a particularly close matchup in that department.
Yeah. To the other game, look, the Lions were in control of this thing, and the Brock Purdy in the second half. He was just different. He was awesome. He was really
awesome.
He was really awesome. Like, I know that he's going to have his detractors, but look, as long as the guy keeps winning, I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's got
the defense. The defense played awesome.
No, they gave up 31 points.
The defense wasn't great.
Yeah, defense wasn't great, and that's usually their thing. I'm curious to see the matchups on that defense in the Super Bowl, particularly. And look, the quarterback has been upgraded. Like, Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy G, the quarterback they had the last time around.
Yes.
And he's playing better than Jimmy G was when San Francisco got there. That was a team that was very much driven by the running game and the defense and all this. This team, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is the best overall offensive talent in the league, probably. But when you have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle even having an average game, like, Brock Purdy doesn't have to, he doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He just has to throw the ball around those guys. They'll get it and make plays. That's what he did yesterday. Like, Brandon Ayuk made a crazy good play because he's that kind of athlete.
I think about him in college a lot recently. It's funny because you mentioned people were not saying this for him. And I remember talking about him as an NFL guy after his freshman year because it was so good. It was so surprising to see how well he played. Second year rolled around, he was still really good. I just think third year, as good as he was, that last season really just his decision making was terrible, really terrible at times.
He was really trying to trying to get them back to where they were, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you see the clips circulate all the time where it's like, this guy is going to the Super Bowl, and it's like, he made some really bad choices in college in terms of where he's throwing the ball. But he had some ability. Like, there was no reason for him. I mean, when you get later in the draft, guys go certain places for certain reasons, but he was not like some horrible quarterback, right? He's not some terrible player. I mean, did Sam Ehlinger get drafted? I forgot if he got drafted.
Yeah, he the Colts. Yeah.
Yeah, what was it? Well, I forgot what round it was.
Sixth round.
Yeah. Brock Purdy was a lot better than Sam Ehlinger was. Especially as an NFL player. Mm-hmm. Like, Brock Purdy, Sam Ehlinger was a good college quarterback, but he ran a lot, and I never liked him as a thrower. Brock Purdy was athletic, could roll around, and you saw it yesterday. But he was, he's a throw first guy. And so, there was Mr. Irrelevant. It's a great story from that perspective. Like, Brock Purdy was not a Mr. Irrelevant type player. Like, he could have been drafted in the 5th and 6th round, I think. And I think, I felt that way at the time. So it's going to be talked about, but this is not some guy who's he couldn't pick his arm up and throw a football until he was in the pros. Like, no, he was a pretty good college quarterback. And who had some natural ability and could move some. So I think I'm surprised, of course, but he got a great coach. He had a really awesome coach in Kyle Shanahan who mentored him, obviously, and the offense that they've developed is great too. So and he's got great weapons around him. So it's not surprising that he's doing this well.
He does. Look, as a lifelong Cowboy fan, I have no hope the 49ers win anything, but I do enjoy, here's the thing. If I were to shut my eyes and wake up in another dimension where the rosters were totally switched, I wouldn't be mad about that at all. I would miss Micah Parsons a little, but I get Bosa, so I'm all right. That's a fine trade for me. But it's just. They have some fun players to watch. I can't wait to see how it unfolds over the weeks. Again, I'd hope to see the Lions in it. I just thought that would have been a great story. I don't begrudge Dan Campbell for going for it on 4th down. You dance with the one that brought you. Sometimes. Yeah,
people were mad about him for kicking in the first half. I don't think people understand the whole point of kicking in the first half was you make it a 3-score lead. Mm-hmm. Because if you score a touchdown, it's a 3-score lead. If you kick a field goal, it's a 3-score lead. But regardless, you made it a 3-score lead. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's why they ended up kicking in the first half, was to make it a 3-score game.
Yeah.
And so possession-wise, that was the smart thing to do. Second half, people were like, "Oh, why are you doing this?" they had a tough time stopping the 49ers. So I actually thought going for it was the right decision.
Well,
the problem I had was running the ball on the last possession when they scored a touchdown. They should not have run on third down.
Yeah, they cost themselves the timeout that they.
They did such a good job saving the timeouts up until that point, and it's like you smoked one. I mean, and Ben Johnson has been great this year, scheme, whatever. He missed that one. That's a bad play call too.
Yeah,
bad play call.
Absolutely.
Bad execution.
Well, Josh, appreciate you being on. We're going to add you to the rotation. Always love talking to you when I get a chance. Look, go subscribe to Josh's podcast, The Big 12 Watch, and go to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, do all those things you're supposed to do. Because, again, I know that it seems like stupid that we all have to ask all this time on YouTube, but it is the lifeblood of what we do. Like it is, It really matters a lot. Like we are trying to jump into an algorithm of trillions. Like there's so much stuff out there. So every like, every subscribe for a creator, for a show, anything you like helps them. It absolutely helps them. So you watch a video you've already seen before, like it, share it, like all those things really help. So we appreciate what you do. Josh, have a good week, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good, Paul. Appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it for us. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.